How's it going, folks? I'm Cody Campbell with High Ground Gaming. Today I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing the Redragon K556 Dharma Pro. I'm going to start by walking you through the specs, then I'll open it up, let you take a look at what comes inside. After that, we'll go to the review portion where I'll give you my thoughts on it, and then we'll go to High Ground Gaming's final score. Stick around. So this actually has three different kinds of connectivity. You can use a USB Type-C cable, a 2.4G connection for gaming, or a Bluetooth 5.0 connection for productivity. It uses red linear switches, which are actually hot swappable with any 3 or 5-pin MX switch. It has an aluminum chassis, a 1600 milliamp per hour battery, and RGB. That's about it for the specs though. Why don't we go ahead and open it up? Let's see what's in here. All right, here we've got the cable. It looks to be a USB Type A to USB Type C cable. We've got a keycap remover and we've got a switch remover. And it looks like we've got a few extra red linear switches. All right, got a little extra paperwork, some stickers comes along with it. Wow, first impression, this thing's pretty heavy. I actually like that a lot. I like when a keyboard has some weight. It means it's not gonna slide around on you. I like that it feels secure and it feels like a nice quality piece of equipment, you know? Keycaps feel nice. It didn't list on the site what kind they are. I think they're probably just ABS, but there's a tiny bit of wiggle to them, but not bad at all. Looks like we've got some function keys for switching between Bluetooth modes and that 2.4G here. We've got the USB Type-C port right on the back there. Let's take a look at the bottom. All right, got some rubber feet, little switch there to go between the Bluetooth mode, the 2.4G, or just to leave it off if you're gonna have it plugged in. Looks like the dongle for the 2.4G is magnetically stationed there. And it looks like we've got one sort of incline. Yeah, it's the table moving, not the keyboard. That's always a good sign. All right, that's about all I can tell just by looking at it. I'm gonna go ahead and hook it up to my computer, play some games with it, and we'll be right back with the review portion. Don't go anywhere. All right, I've spent some time with the Redragon Dharma Pro and I'm ready to talk about it, but first, like and subscribe if you haven't already. All right, let's dive in by talking about the build quality on this thing, and I do think that is probably its strongest point. The aluminum frame on this, the aluminum housing, is really nice. I like it a lot. It does have some hard edges, but it's really, really sturdy. You're not gonna have to worry about this keyboard developing any sort of bow or flexing, and it gives it a hefty weight, which means it's not gonna slide around on your desk. And it's also, in my opinion, just nice. I like when a peripheral has a little bit of weight to it. It makes it feel like a quality professional piece of equipment. I couldn't find out what kind of keycaps they're using, but I'm assuming just by looking at them and the fact that they don't really specify that they're basic ABS, that means that this matte finish is probably going to develop a little bit of shine over time. That's also kind of worrisome for the function keys here because those are just printed on and that'll probably wear away with continued use, especially on the QWER keys here, because if you're gaming with this keyboard, you're probably going to be using those quite a bit. Also, while we're talking about the function keys, it's worth noting that the media controls on this are secondary functions of the F keys up here. So you do have to hold the function key down to use the media control keys. That's not the end of the world, but I like having dedicated media control keys, and it's kind of a bummer that this doesn't have them. The last note that I want to make about the build quality is that this keyboard is pretty steep. The feet on the back there do give it a little bit of incline, but it's still a pretty steep setting for you to have your wrists directly on the desk, which means you're probably going to end up wanting a wrist rest, and this keyboard did not come with one. Again, not a super big deal. You can pick up a wrist rest for pretty cheap. It's just worth mentioning. Now let's move on to the connectivity performance. So when this is connected via the USB Type-C cable or when it's using Bluetooth, it works perfectly. It works exactly like you'd expect it to. The connection's solid and the wired connection is pretty much latency free. And the Bluetooth connection is, markedly higher latency, but the connection itself is solid. Now, the 2.4G is where we kind of run into some problems because the connection isn't super strong. I found that if there is any sort of obstruction between the dongle and the keyboard itself, you're going to start dropping some keystrokes and that connection's going to get a little bit spotty. When it was connected in a place that was just a couple feet away from the keyboard and there was a clear line of sight on it, it worked great. It worked exactly like you'd expect it to. It was fast, it was responsive, and I didn't have any issues with dropped keystrokes. When I moved that dongle to the top of my PC, to one of the USB ports up near the front, it started losing signals. Even though that's only a few feet away from the keyboard, I think just the housing of my PC itself was enough of an obstacle that it obstructed the signal and I started getting dropped keystrokes. So that does raise some concerns, particularly if you're planning on using this in like a living room or something where you're going to be kind of far away and you might have tables in between you and the keyboard's dongle or whatever. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. For some people, that won't be an issue at all because you might naturally have a setup where you're going to be plugging it in somewhere right near the keyboard. For other people, if you've got your PC under a desk or tucked away somewhere or, on the other side of the room, then you're either going to have to get some sort of extension probably so that you can get that dongle closer to the keyboard, or you might just want to consider using something else. That said, once I did get a solid signal and I did have it plugged in nice and close to the keyboard, I didn't have any issues at all. I was playing Mass Effect for a little bit, and the whole time I was playing, I felt that the keys were perfectly responsive and I had a great time using it. Now let's talk about the switches in this guy, because the marketing on that is a little bit confusing. If you go to their website, there's a lot of stuff that says that you can choose like Otemu switches for this, and even in the features section it mentions Otemu switches, but if you pop the keycaps off this guy, you'll see that they are actually Redragon's own brand of switches. I don't know if they have a partnership with Otemu or what the deal is there exactly. It's really hard to find any information about it. But the Redragon switches are not bad. They're not the best that I've ever used, but I enjoyed using them. They do have a good amount of tension to them. They feel nice when you're using them. The actuation point seems to be about halfway down on the keystroke, which is a little low, but it's not bad. It's good for people who might be a little heavy-handed. You're not going to have to worry about accidental keystrokes just from resting your fingers on it. But the actuation is smooth all the way down. It feels like an even amount of pressure. There's no pockets where it gets loose towards the bottom or anything like that. And I think they use a good amount of tension here. They're not too loose and they're not too tight. I think they seem very nice in that regard. Now let's quickly talk about the software that Redragon has made for this keyboard. So here is the Redragon software. This one is specific to the Dharma Pro. When you use Redragon software, you have to make sure that you're getting the correct software for the specific keyboard that you are using. You don't want to use a different Redragon software for a different keyboard. It has to be the correct one. There isn't a whole heck of a lot to this software, though. There are 3 different profiles that you can set here. And within those profiles, there's really just 3 things you can do. You can adjust key bindings, which is pretty basic. You can create and apply macros, which again is a pretty standard ability. And then the third and final thing, and probably the most intricate thing you can do, is you can change lighting effects. There are quite a few different effects on here. Most of them are pretty standard. You've probably seen most of these on other keyboards in the past. These have been around for a long time. Music mode is a pretty cool one, but other than that, they're pretty straightforward. You can adjust color over here if you don't want it to be full RGB. You can change brightness and you can change speed. That's pretty much it. There isn't a whole heck of a lot to this software, so there isn't really that much to say about it. That's about it for the specs, though. Let's get down to the verdict. So the Redragon K556 Dharma Pro MSRP's at $79.99. That's a pretty reasonable price for this keyboard, I think. It's competitive with other full-sized wireless low to mid-range keyboards. I think there's one from Royal Kludge that's right around that same price point, so it seems to be hitting a demographic that it could compete in. Meanwhile, it's much, much cheaper than most of the wireless keyboards from companies like HyperX or Razer or Logitech or any of the bigger name brands. So keeping that in mind, we decided to give this a 3.4 out of 5. It gets big points for the build quality because it's really nice for a budget keyboard. It's much, much nicer than most of the ones that it's competing against just in terms of the physical design. It loses points for some minor things, but the big thing that was the issue was the 2.4G just not having a great connection. I've had this issue with other Redragon keyboards in the past, so I feel like this is sort of an issue with something to do with their dongles or something like that. The signal is just not super strong. That said, if you're looking for a full-sized wireless mechanical gaming keyboard and you want to save a little bit of money and you like that nice heavy build quality, this is not bad. It works well. The switches are actually pretty nice for budget switches, I think. And I think as long as you've got the 2.4G connection sorted, it's a nice value proposition. So if that's what you're looking for and you're okay with that, then I think this is a valid purchase. Why don't you go ahead and drop down into the comments and let us know what you think, though. What is the feature that you're most looking for in a full-sized wireless mechanical gaming keyboard? While you're at it, please like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We've got a lot more content coming real soon, including another Redragon keyboard review right around the corner. So subscribe if you don't want to miss that. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching. Happy gaming.